Wonderful. And I'm going to share my screen and put everybody over there. Okay, so hopefully, David, you can see that all okay?
I can.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's all right. I'm showing the right screen. Perfect. Okay, so welcome everybody. Lovely to see you all. Like I say, I'll probably be clicking people in, but as I do that, I'm going to hand over to David to kick us all off. So over to you,
Fantastic.
David.
Thanks, Becky. Well, hi, everybody. So my name's David Clubb, and I'm the Managing Director of Tate. So Becky and I work very closely together. And if you didn't know anything about sort of Tate being part of a wider group, we are actually part of the Impellum group. And we often say Impellum is the largest recruitment business that you have never heard of, because actually it's like a trading name that is a holding company for lots of brands, 16 brands that go to market throughout the UK in different specialisms and across the globe. And actually across the whole of the world, we manage over 200,000 temporary workers. And as you can imagine, with that comes lots and lots of clients, lots of blue chip clients, all ones that you'd have heard of, including things like Diageo and John Lewis, Waitrose, etc., etc. We help build the wings of Airbus, and you probably name any brand, and that we've probably touched them at some point in our portfolio. So I only say that to give you some context of scale. And so when we talk about information and things that we are raising in the future of work, it's coming from a place where we have a lot of touch points across the globe and across recruitment and the future of work. So hopefully that gives you sort of an idea. It's not just Becky and I just sort of giving you some ideas off the back of a a fag packet. But we want to give you our insight into what we see in the market, and also what we discuss with our colleagues in the Impellum group. And we've put this together to give you an idea of A, what's happening, and B, what you can do about it as PAs and EAs. And if some of you may or may not have heard me speak, but I've spoken at the PA show, and I also have created a LinkedIn group called PA and EA Network in UK, and we're rising in members of that. And if you aren't a member and want to join, then just go onto LinkedIn and search that, and I will admit you into the group. It's just there to share articles and stories. So that's a little bit about me and Tate and the Impellum group. And Becky, do you want to give yourself a little introduction?
I know quite a few people know me on this call already, but for those that don't, so my name is Becky Webber. My day job, if you like, Regional Director for Tate Recruitment. I've worked for Tate for over 20 years. The only recruitment firm I've ever worked for. 3 years ago, I wanted to give back and support job seekers, bearing in mind that we're, as a world, if you like, the world of work is evolving, hiring methods are changing, hiring behaviours are changing, technology is coming in. And my biggest concern was who was educating the job seeker. So 3 years ago, I founded Positive Career Advice, which started off as a very simple Facebook page and has now evolved into a website full of resources and tools and support, with the basic aim of bringing to you the right information to help you navigate the job seeker market in what is, pretty tough out there at the moment, as you know. The economy is on the up, which is fantastic. There's lots of positive things going on, which should fill us with lots of hope and optimism. But if we can reach that end destination of finding the ideal job more quickly with a helping hand, then that's always a good thing. And since March of last year, I've been running free webinars for job seekers, over 100 so far, on creating the perfect CV and 20 steps to optimize your LinkedIn profile, reaching over 2,000 job seekers so far. In fact, more than that, I might even reached 3,000, but I have given up counting. It's a lot of people, but the more people we can help, the better. And that's what I want to do. I really love adding value to people. So very excited about it. So we're going to start with David tonight, aren't we, David, in terms of what's going on, in terms of the evolving office environment. So I'm going to hand back to David now. Welcome to all those that have just joined. I am recording this, so if you've missed any bits, don't worry, you'll be able to watch it back. So David, I'm going to share your slide.
Thank you. So I, as I mentioned, have done a number of talks to PA and EA groups across the UK, and as I mentioned, also the PA show in London. And really, what I wanted to share with you is what we have seen coming through. And when I presented this a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, we didn't have those spiky little fellas in the top right-hand corner, and but it's very relevant to what we were talking about and how we were positioning what was coming up. And back then, when we were doing physical seminars and webinars, the biggest thing on the horizon was Brexit. And of course, that was the only thing that the UK press talked about. And we had our fill of that, didn't we? And what we wanted to talk about was, well, that was a big thing on the horizon, but there were many other things on the horizon, and a lot of those things you're not even aware of. Clearly, I wasn't having a crystal ball and predicting a pandemic, but what I was trying to say is that there will be things coming up that you will not be able to even think about now in the future, and so you need to be thinking about your career and what you can do before these things come at you. And what happened? Yeah, we had the biggest shift in probably employment in the UK this century with the pandemic, which has made huge changes, and has put Brexit into almost paling into insignificance. However, Brexit will come back, and it's already having some influences in some roles and in employment. But not as it was predicted, because there was other changes coming through. However, there are some challenges in there. So the main sort of big signpost is change ahead. And what is that change, and how is it going to affect you? Well, the key thing this year, we may as well hit it, which is the COVID situation and how that has shifted the trend for home working. And it's been incredible. I think, without the pandemic, I don't think the shift would have happened anywhere near the way it's happened now. And the hottest topic in HR is now flexible working, and how staff are looking and wanting in their next future move to be working from home and working, whether you call it agile working, hybrid working, flexible working. It's 2 days in the office, 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, 3 days at home. So that is what everybody's talking about and wanting the way forward. Now, of course, people want to get back and see each other, but they do like and enjoy that freedom. And so there'll be lots of changes in employment contracts and the way that you go and come from work. This has fallen into the hands of lots of virtual PAs who made the move before the pandemic and have set up the business to be virtual PAs, and there's a massive rise in that, and because you just do not now need to be in an office. I was doing this talk about 2 years ago now, and there was a lady working in a particular industry in the city, and she just could not see how her job was going to change in the next 5 years, and said, look, I hear what you're saying, and I know HR have invited you to talk to us about this, but I just don't see the relevance. And it this is exactly the relevance, in the sense that something's going to come around the corner that you don't know. So it's never too late to start thinking about refreshing your options for the future. So COVID, we all know about, and has become the new Brexit. That's all we talk about. So let's talk about some other things which are affecting the landscape of how we do and transact our work. And if I think back to my own sort of career, and things were slowly changing. When I joined recruitment, we were still on manual typewriters, and all of a sudden the influx of Word for Windows and all those Word Star document and all that sort of came in, and it started to really then accelerate. And I was right at the forefront of that at the beginning, and starting to see the changes in office practice. And that's sort of the start of the new technology coming in. And I remember when the internet sort of happened and everyone was like, oh, how do you think the internet's going to change the world of work? And it was just then rapidly accelerating as technology started to really take pace. And you see there in the bottom middle is the robot, and we've been talking about robots taking over our jobs. Oh my God! Since I don't remember. You remember Tomorrow's World? It used to be in the especially in the 70s when I was growing up, and we used to think about flying cars and all this sort of stuff, and robots, being there. And I think that gave us the image that a physical robot was going to do our job, and actually, that's not how automation and computing is going to take over our roles. So it isn't going to be the foreman there, as you see. It's going to be how each of our jobs can be broken up and automated. And the example of how that's happening is the gig economy. And if you haven't heard of the gig economy, that's the new buzz phrase for how we will transact our careers in the future. Is that each role that you do will be a gig. You will be doing many different roles at the same time. So our work won't be just for one employer. It will be broken up, and you can start to see this in the obvious terms of things like Uber, and how you could be on an airline, doing a shift for your for your airline, coming back, driving a bit of an Uber, and then you could be on the phone, working for, let's say, Autoglass, directing people to different locations with smashed windscreens. It's starting to become that diverse. You can fit your job to do in what you want in the environment and the times that you want it. So the gig economy is breaking up the world of work into different gigs, and a lot of those platforms are online. So the need for the physical offices are no longer. And if you think about the size of these companies that are now dominating the stock markets in the world, and the power, they're these huge gigantic businesses, your Googles and your Apples and your Microsofts, they're enormous, but it's taken them a relatively short time to get to that size in comparison to the size of the businesses that went global and took hundreds of years to get there. And you can see that change now washing over the market of the world of work. So the gig economy being, at the forefront now of breaking that up, and that works hand in hand with automation. So if you think about, and I've had this discussion with people lots of times, they think, well, how will my job change? Well, the way that companies are looking at yours and everyone's job is, well, which parts can we automate? Which parts are the ones that are going to be able to be automated, which leaves other parts for people to do? So anything that is routine, anything that can be digitized, that you can think that's going to happen. And when we were talking about this over the last sort of 5 years, you would put on a flip chart those jobs that you think could be automated and those that you thought couldn't be automated. And those that we didn't think could be automated were always things like driving a car, delivering on a lorry, a doctor, something that's really sort of takes a lot of time to train and to master your skills. Now, all of those are automated now. And that is like relatively quickly that has been turned around. We see driverless cars. You see now that we have deliveries without anybody delivering them. They're going to be more and more present in our lives. And the same with highly skilled people. The legal profession has been decimated by automation of case study files, and you touch of a button, you can have all the relevant cases at your fingertips within seconds, as opposed to researchers and the legal teams spending all of their experience preparing these things. Same with doctors. The ability for a computer to recognize, let's say, mole cancer and skin cancer is far more accurate in seconds than a doctor with 20 years experience, because it will go out into the internet and it will find millions of different pictures, analyze them, and come back with its answer. It isn't that robot sitting behind a GP's desk asking you your case history. It is looking at the problem in a different way. So that's where technology is going to be coming through and changing our roles, because it will, anything that can be digitized and automated and done through artificial intelligence, then it will be done that way, because it's more efficient. So you can start to see then how the landscape will change, and how companies will start to then have a different approach to their workforce, and how they will break the work up into different segments or gigs. Coupled with that, we have I love the little girl there with the laptop, and you can see there that you know, any of you who've been working as a PA and EA for a long time, you will notice that maybe bosses are getting younger and younger, and in that they've grown up in the digitized world, and they will be able to be more self-sufficient around lots of the packages of the things that traditionally would have been maybe given to their PA or their EA. And the one-on-one PA and EA is becoming less and less. We're seeing that in our vacancies, and the EAs and PAs that we're recruiting for need to be more versatile, to have the ability to work for more than one director, and have more skill sets around maybe the traditional work. Now, I'm not saying that there are none of those roles left anymore, because there are, but you've got to imagine it as the shrinking water hole that you see on the documentaries, where, you know, everybody's fighting for the water that's coming down, because those sorts of roles will come less and less and less as technology comes more and more and more. And the more research you do and the more things you start to look at, there's already artificial intelligent software with voice recognition that can phone up and make appointments for people. Now, it's incredible that we've got to the stage there where, you know, you have an artificial intelligent voice that can actually fool you know, somebody to make an appointment. But that is already in place, that is already happening and available, and it doesn't take long for that to shift into the office environment and it become the norm. So the rise of artificial intelligence is just incredible of what it can do, and you couple that with what they call the nanotechnology, and everything's being packaged into smaller and smaller devices that, you know, you start to then worry, oh my God, you know, how on earth will I have a job in the future? Well, you know, it's not all gloom and doom. And what you've got to remember, and we've all got to remember, is that technology isn't a job destroyer, it's a job creator. In the annals of history, new technology does not destroy jobs, it creates more jobs. What it does is shifts the job to somewhere else. So that's the clue in this, is that you have to be ready to upskill and change and adapt to the new scenario. And if you do that, then you just follow where the jobs are created, but you've got to be willing to learn. And when I do this as a physical seminar, the first thing I would get you all to do when you come in is to settle down, and then I ask you to stand up and move places. And you should see the horror on everybody's face as they have sat down, got comfortable, met the person next to them. And I say, that is just me pretending to ask you to move. And you feel the horror inside you of that. Now, when you think, then translate that to the workplace and how your job can change, it does cause distress with people. And you've got to perhaps, you know, get to the point now thinking, well, okay, if there's change coming, how can I adapt to it, and how can I work with it? Because that will make you then that uncomfortable feeling hopefully slightly less onerous. So that's in a whistle stop really how we're starting to see things changing. You know, you've got Brexit, you've got obviously COVID, the gig economy, you've got office automation through new technology, and especially artificial intelligence, which is really coming through as the game changer for those types of roles that we didn't think could be automated. they certainly will be. And then you've got your managers who will be younger and younger, who will be more self-sufficient. So all of those are coming to change your role. And if you look on the World Economic Forum, unfortunately, PAs, EAs, administrators, they're in the top quartile, or the top 5 roles that are going to be in decline the most in their view. So this is coming from the World Economic Forum as well, and a global trend. So we can't have our heads in the sand. And I'll finish on the Pew research they did in America, where 2/3 of Americans that were surveyed in a massive survey recognized that office automation was going to come and change jobs. However, 80% thought it wasn't going to be their job. So therein lies the problem, that everyone knows that it's coming, but they don't think it's going to be their job. So we can't have our heads in the sand. We've got to think about this, and that's brilliant that you're all on here to talk about this and want to see what you can do. And now I've scared the bejesus out of everybody. I'm going to now hand over to Becky to build everybody up and say, it's all right, there's something you can do about it. So there we go. I'll hand over to Becky.
Thanks, David. And you also gave your age away, didn't you, when you were talking about?
I know. That's just my little thing to say, oh, David, you don't look that old. But unfortunately, the grey hair does.
Oh, well, thank you. And I forgot to say at the beginning, please do feel free to add any questions or comments into the chat function as we go through this. And obviously, we will answer any questions at the end as well. So this is about you, educating you, as David said, not to scare you, but to help you on that next step of your career journey as well. So just like, so I'm just letting someone else in, just like every successful business has a strategic plan, so should you, if you are serious about your future career. And as we know from Dave, what David's gone through, we know the world of work is rapidly evolving. And it's essential for us to understand that there's more to getting hired now than just qualifications and previous experience when considering our next step. Understanding how the world of work is evolving provides us with a greater understanding of how we may fit into it by having transparency on what we have to offer in terms of value and skills, and a greater awareness of the skill gaps that we have to plug. And increased self-awareness also enables us to take a level of control where we can embrace lifelong learning, as David alluded to keep up with these changes, therefore remaining agile and also adaptable and attractive to future employers. Now, if some of you have been on my webinar, you're going to see a few slides that are familiar to you here, but I'm just going to recap on a few things that I do cover in some of my webinars here, this one being one of them. So when we consider a career move, one of the most common mistakes that job seekers make is to launch themselves straight onto the internet and start applying for jobs without understanding or having clarity on the role that they seek and the value that they have to offer. In other words, scattergunning. Now, maybe that might sound familiar to you. Pop a yes in the chat if you can relate to this, that sort of scattergunning effect of applying to lots of different jobs out there and going straight to the internet rather than actually reflecting and spending some time doing that self-introspection that you need to do at the beginning. Bernadette's already said, yep. Aisha said, yep. I'm sure you're not alone. There's lots of people that say yes to this. But this frantic activity results in low self-esteem, reduced confidence, and a negatively impacted mindset. And I'm sure you can relate to that too, because this is where we start to feel rejected, or we don't actually receive any feedback because we don't get a response. And that doesn't do us any favors either. So the long and short of it is, we know that that scattergunning effect doesn't work, and we need to have more of a sniper or targeted approach to our job search. And this is what I cover in my webinars that I run on a regular basis. So there are 3 vital steps to focus on to ensure that you have a targeted approach to your job search. And the first one is discovering, recognizing, understanding and appreciating your key contributions, the value you bring, and also the learnings and how they fit in to your next role. The second one is gaining a good understanding of your target position and target company and how good a fit you are currently, and also not forgetting the company's evolving aspirations and the employer's expectations of the role. And the third and final area is your ability to successfully position yourself for the targeted role based on the first two aspects objectively. Changing jobs or moving up the career ladder does involve a lot of deep introspection, which many do not dedicate enough time to. And for the purposes of today's webinar, I'm just going to focus on the first of these three, and I'm going to highlight some exercises that you can do. And also a webinar that we ran last week as well that you might be interested in attending. I think some of you attended it on this webinar today. All of these exercises I'm just going to cover with you, you can access through my website, which is positivecareeradvice.com, and you'll be able to see the guide, which is how to create the perfect CV, and these exercises are within this guide. The first one is self-reflection. So there are 6 simple questions on this slide. Again, you don't need to write them down. They're in the guide that you can download on the website. And whilst I say self-reflection, it would be advisable to consider also asking your friends, trusted friends, family, ex-colleagues, and also casting your mind back to those one-to-one reviews that you've done with your manager as well, those appraisals that you've done, where you talk about your areas of expertise and development areas too. Naturally, we always gravitate to tasks we find more comfortable, and these tend to be our natural strengths, but we also shy away from tasks as well. And these can be areas that we feel less comfortable with too. But by understanding all of these, it educates us on what's important to us, what we enjoy and what we don't enjoy, and increases our self-awareness and giving us more career clarity and where our career destination needs to go. The second one is our strengths and value that we have to offer. It's so much easier, isn't it, to find value in others moreover than finding value in ourselves, because we take an awful lot of what we do for granted and just basically just say it's just what I do. But when we have this exercise of self-introspection, it's really important to dig deep to unravel that value and discover that value so we can bring it to the forefront to show prospective employers in the future what we have to offer. So when we're creating our job search marketing material, we need to move away from responsibilities orientated narrative towards an accomplishment orientated narrative. A shopping list of duties and responsibilities with limited business impact and value is not going to help us stand apart from the competition. So the pointers we've got on this slide, and obviously what you can see on the guide that we've got as well, will help give you some inspiration about some of the areas that you can consider, not just in work, but also outside of work as well. We very much miss those transferable skills that we might do in our hobbies and our interests, as well as our education as well. And as we go through this, we want to consider specific examples of where we've added value, where we'll be able to describe the achievement, a step-by-step guide, who it was done for, and where possible, the results and the impact of that achievement as well, where we can add percentages or pound notes or whatever it might be, which will give us more impact when we're describing them. The third and final one is values and purpose. We can't expect to know what we want out of our next job opportunity if we do not appreciate what's important and also essential to us. And identifying our values will get us much closer to the answer. The key thing here is to consider what we valued about our previous employers and also what we didn't value, as that's also a value. So for example, if you didn't like the lack of communication, you've also pinpointed another value that's important to you. Also consider what you're doing when you're at your best, why you do the work you do, who you admire, and what you admire as well. And then once you've got your list of values, you can prioritize them. This can sometimes be quite tricky, and for extra support, if you are struggling with this, I'm going to pop a link to a YouTube video, which I alluded to earlier, which is a webinar that Emma Tomes, if you're in the Positive Career Advice community group that I run, you will have already been on this potentially, or you have access to this already. But Emma Tomes is an ex-job seeker who attended one of my previous webinars, who is a qualified mental health first aid instructor, grief counsellor, and currently training for a master practitioner in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And she supports me with some of our webinars, and she ran a session on values and purpose last week. So I would strongly advise you to watch it. So I've just popped that in the chat if you're interested in attending as well. The key thing we're looking to achieve there is that we want clarity on our areas of specialism, the skills and strengths that define us, our accomplishments, like I say, career, educational and extracurricular, and what drives us as a person, your values and purpose. And thank you, Annalise, just popped in the chat, attended the webinar on Friday and thought it was really, really good. Preparing well and looking introspectively at our career, which we need to do not just when we're job seeking, but throughout our career to make sure we're ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. And as David said, we're aware and preparing for what's going to come around the corner next will help us when we're faced with looking for a new job in the future, or what that career needs to look for, or what we need to look for in our career as well. So always spend that time looking introspectively. So this slide is to remind you of the remarkable work that you do as assistants, because it's a huge amount of responsibilities that you have. There's a massive list of attributes that you will have in varying degrees based upon your role's individuality and strengths that make all the difference to the directors and executives you currently support or have supported in the past, making their lives easier and enabling them to achieve their strategic goals. So if you're struggling to articulate your value, think about what life would be like for your directors, for your executives, without your support. So think about what you do, which frees them up to concentrate on business critical concerns. Consider the role you played in helping the business adapt through COVID, what projects you volunteered for, how you've used your network to solve a problem or to turn the impossible task into the possible. Today's assistants have to be really proficient in many systems, apps and plugins, and so executives can do their jobs. So how have you upskilled yourself on new tools to improve your executives' efficiency, freeing up their time? We know that the EA and PA role and function is transforming from a supporting role to more of a strategic partner. Many of today's executives and directors lean on their assistants, not just for admin support, but also for counsel, technical expertise, and critical analysis. PAs and EAs are expected to dabble in things as vast and varied as project management, event planning, and internal communications. Quite frankly, you are amazing people, so don't underestimate the fantastic value that you have to offer, because it's phenomenal. Going to mute. Okay. But that's today. What about tomorrow? On the slide, I post some questions that you may wish to think about yourself to define what's important in your future. Don't worry, what I'm going to do, there's questions on this particular slide. I'm going to send out a guide to you afterwards, so you don't need to scribble them all down. So you'll have all of this in the guide that will follow. So that's a bit of a few moment there as you grab your pen. But if you don't know the answer to some of these questions, don't panic. Keeping your options open is fine, provided you're not meandering up that wrong road. Most importantly, it is absolutely vital you stay rooted to your values and your purpose, and you respond appropriately as markets evolve, so you're not left behind or feeling trapped, because that's not a nice feeling. So keep your mind open to discovering opportunities as you enjoy the journey, because it's really important to enjoy it too, because you're going to learn a lot along this journey too. So as you consider the future and continue your journey, there are many options available to you to learn new skills and encourage new knowledge, some of which I've included on this slide. Being proactive with your development can open doors to opportunities you've never dreamt possible, widening your network and introducing you to experts along the way. And if anyone has tried anything that's not on this slide, perhaps you could share it in the chat as well, just to share it amongst one another. And just to educate one another as well. There might be some ideas or inspirations you've come across as well. Again, this will be on the guide that I'll send out to you. So if you're a job seeker today, or if there's a possibility you may be in the near future, there are 4 areas that we're going to recommend to you that you spend time focusing on. The first one is to educate yourself on hiring technology. Applicant tracking systems is one of those technologies, one of those hiring technologies, and you can read all about the research that I've done offline on applicant tracking systems available on my website under blogs or on my LinkedIn profile, which are the latest 2 articles I've written. I would strongly encourage you to read it. The more educated you become, the more you can navigate and not see those the technology as a barrier to being hired. The second thing is to experiment. You know, video is the fastest growing, most engaging communication tool and being used prolifically in hiring processes. So you need to get comfortable with video. And LinkedIn, if you've been on one of my last couple of webinars, I shared with you some of the new sort of options that LinkedIn will be enabling you to have, which is all about video, where you can turn your profile picture into a video, a 1-minute video, selling yourself to prospective employers, and also where you can become a thought leader as well. And there'll be more opportunities to share videos in that regard too. The third area is to amplify. Networking isn't just important when you're job seeking, it's vital throughout your career. Being the best kept secret won't get you found. So you need to be brave and you need to get visible. It is so critical for you to do this, and we need to be really brave to do it. The fourth and final one is to clarify your message. Your brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. That's what Jeff Bezos says. It's your reputation. So consider what you want to be known for and be authentic. Be who you really truly are. And my final tip of the day is writing a CV is really, really hard when you're out of employment. So create your CV ideally while you're in employment and use it as a working document to store your successes, the value that you have to offer, and also the difference that you can make as well. So my final question, are you going to take control of your career or will you let it control you? And that's me. So
Thanks.
that's all right.
Thanks, Becky.
That's no problem. I don't know if we've got any questions or comments, or if anybody wants to take themselves off mute at all. Sorry, I've got the sun glaring in my face like I have done on the last few webinars. I'm going to move back a bit. But does anyone have any comments or questions that they would like to ask David or myself?
I just want to say, you know, sometimes as an EAPA, we forget how valuable we are and that we're not just one-trick ponies. And I think, again, like many of your sessions, Becky, today you've just emphasized and highlighted that. I think it's really important as assistants, we do remember that we are our own little unicorns and we are special.
Absolutely, Nikki. I know it's very easy to take it for granted, which is why I put that big slide up with all of those skills that you have to remind you how amazing you are.
I think there's a great comment that came through on the chat. It's like, you know, what can you do to sort of start and getting involved in a project is great. You know, within your company is to sort of start to stretch your wings a little bit to try and gain some new skills. So that was a great bit of advice there to do that, and get yourself informed, because you know, there's some key things that are relevant in the market at the moment. You know, project management is so desirable at the moment, for obviously, and through change, you know, those skills are important. So if you're going to be you know, looking at upskilling, you know, you want to start probably around project management and those sorts of skills, just to sort of kick it off. But you know, you really need to start thinking about what have you got, what are those great skills, and what maybe is missing and what you can enhance.
Absolutely. Any other comments or questions or thoughts or observations?
Yes, I was thinking that it would be very surprising if PAs and secretaries and EAs are not going back to the office as before. So although Nikki's comment was lovely and positive, I think this is not really a negative one. It's more sort of, I can't imagine people continuing to give PAs, etc., the choice that we now are appearing to have, that managers have, whether they can work at home or how long they'll work at home for, etc. It's very surprising that PAs would have that choice. At the moment, some firms are making it happen, but that could just be because I'm, perhaps just thinking of the past, really, because before the pandemic, a lot of people already had that choice, but secretaries were not one of them. We were not included in that. You had to be in the office. You don't decide things like that for yourself. So I don't know how that's going to go. But yes, I think putting ourselves forward perhaps will, make it happen.
I think that you're absolutely right that the change was that pandemic, and that people have realised that, quite frankly, the productivity can be improved by home working, and there will be some directors that see the benefits of that, and there'll be others that go, good God, no, everyone back in the office as soon as we can. But I would say those are going to be in the minority now, whereas before they were in the majority, because there's been an absolute tectonic shift in the way that companies are viewing home working, and I can guarantee there will be far more flexible home working than there has ever been before, and that those traditional roles where you've got to be back in the office will start to become less and less.
Right.
But it depends on your directors, and there will be some people who will just can't see it.
I think the hybrid model is quite favoured as well. A combination of the two. A lot of directors aren't always in the office, so that might enable you to work more from home on those days. But I think also as a PA and EA, becoming a strategic partner with your director and executive in many cases, there is sometimes a need to be more visible in the office so that you can see and hear what's going on, and you can be that voice as well. And it builds your knowledge up and your network up internally, which then would enhance your skills to be that sort of counsel, if you like, to that director as well. So I think, the hybrid model is a really attractive option as well. And
yes, and I think the way that you're describing it is how it probably will be put. It's kind of, how wonderful for you to be back in the office because it's so great and everything. That's it will be, dressed up. So
the other thing is, though,
but actually we won't have a choice.
Well, a lot of companies are driven by shareholder value, and most companies are seeing the huge cost savings they can make by shedding their properties. So even if they were able to shed 20% of their office space, that is money that would drop straight to the bottom line. So there is going to be quite a drive in most boardrooms around, okay, what have we learned from this exercise, and how does that going to translate into hard cash on the bottom line? And in a lot of industries that are under pressure through the pandemic and through trying to recreate that shareholder value, they will be doing it, and so it'll be driven by that as well, not only the fact that they traditionally liked working in an office.
Yes, I think you're right, and of course it's a lot of people have downsized, a lot of companies have downsized, and now they'll be squeezing themselves into the smaller offices. So that's another thing that is going to make people work from home. So.
Definitely.
There's some great comments coming through in the chat actually about individuals' experience. So I think Annalie has made a comment about needing to be more flexible for the days we're in the office at home. So as an EA, PA, we need, having that flexibility. And Charlotte's just mentioned about where she works, it's a 60-40 in favour of home working. So following that hybrid model that seems to be sort of the most attractive option for many organisations now. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, isn't it? But the more flexible we are as individuals, I think the better as well. So certainly at Tate, we operate in a hybrid model now, don't we, David?
We do. Yeah, we absolutely do.
And that's accelerated our model. And in Pelham, is very much sampling the same. So yeah, absolutely. So any other comments or questions? Or
Thank you for that.
you're welcome, Bernadette.
Yeah, Annelie, yeah, I just got a comment regarding the skills that and the trends that David has mentioned. I think it's quite interesting to follow the World Economic Forum, and I don't quite remember. There was another study very similar with the characteristics or the skill sets that workers overall, not only PAs, EAs, so everybody will need in the years to come, and compare that to what it was like 5 years ago. I mean, 5 years ago, there was a bit of negotiation and things like that. And now if you look at it's emotional intelligence,
Exactly.
Yeah.
it's project management, it's completely going away from the, let's say, the learnable skills in a
The
way,
hard skills, yeah.
the hard skills into the soft skills. And I think following to the discussion we just had about the working from home and the hybrid working, I think one thing that we, especially as EAs, PAs, being the conduit between the teams and the company and our executives, what we need also to look out for is when we are working in a hybrid environment. At the moment, we are all the same. At the moment, we are all sitting in on the screen. We are all the same. There's nobody sitting at the top of the table. We all got the same size of the square. So what happens when some people are in the office and some people are working from home because the decision has been made, for example, to split the team? They are never together at the same time or so. So I think that is another where we can bring something in and say, okay, we are very aware that there will be some people in the office and some people at home. How can we make them feel all engaged and together still as a team? So I think that will be also a big task for us, where we can actually really add value, because we know the guys, we know where they are, we know what they do.
It's a very good point, and I think you've got to think about how your skill set really plays into that of organization and keeping, you know, the teams together. I absolutely think that's a winner. So good point.
I think you've stumbled across a very good selling point there, Annelie. Without a doubt, without a doubt. I think Claire's just popped in there about lots of free courses to upskill yourself and learn new technologies online. I know that the Open University offers lots of free courses, as does the government. And I'm off the top of my head, I can't think what it's called. If anyone can help me out, if anyone knows what it is, but the government offers lots of free skill training as well. And I will endeavour to find out what it's called, and I will put it in the email.
It's Claire, Becky. I think if you just go on the gov.uk website, you can find it from there. But I've also found that my local authority and my local college are offering more courses than ever, even if you're currently employed, to just upskill yourself and learn about new technologies, which is great.
Absolutely. And I think there's more, you know, there's lots more education coming out, and I think you know, just like us running these webinars, the ones that I do, the more educated you can get, the better. I know that there's a few, I've just remembered what it's called, the skills toolkit. There we go. There's a few people also asking about the webinars as well. If you go to my website, positivecareeradvice.com, there's a section there about the webinars, and you can book yourself on through Eventbrite. There's a link that takes you through there. And if you can't make the dates, just let me know, and I'll find another way of getting the education to you in some way. So don't worry about that. But yeah, there's lots of resources out there.
And also don't forget, you know, every company is paying into the apprenticeship levy.
Yes.
Which the government have you know, set up, and your employer has access to those funds for training. So it should be, HR should be aware of that. Most companies aren't spending their apprenticeship levy, and so, you know, there should be plenty of money available for that training, and the average learner in the world of upskilling is 35. So this isn't about apprenticeships coming in for youngsters. This is about people in work having qualifications in all sorts of things. And my own PA back, when we were changing our own business model, we recognized that actually our business was changing, and that she needed to upskill, and so she went through the apprenticeship levy and did a business qualification, which you know, she no longer works for me as my PA anymore, but she left with that qualification and with additional skills, which has then helped her to move on to her next role, because you know, she recognized that her job was now diminishing and was moving. So you know, I'd recommend that you also think about anything that you can take to that.
Absolutely. Has anybody done an apprenticeship? Or are they aware of, if you're currently employed, have you explored the apprenticeship route at all with your employer? No? There we go.
If not, you can you can talk about that and say there's business admin qualifications, there's project management qualifications linked to the business qualifications, and those are excellent. Digital marketing. There's all sorts of ones you can do, and as I say, your company is already, if they're you know, even over sort of 80 to 100 employees, will be paying into that apprenticeship levy. And if you don't pay into the apprenticeship levy, there's ways that you can get training, and your company only contributes 10% of the course. So it's a fantastic route to get free training.
Absolutely.
Great. So
I think we're pretty much
we've got
done,
5 minutes. So
yeah,
unless anyone's got anyone else.
Any other questions from anyone? No. Okay, so I will send out an email with a guide that will capture all of the key elements that we've talked about this evening with you. If you are looking for work at the moment and want to be part of a community of other job seekers, please feel free to join the Positive Career Advice Community Group on Facebook. I'll put the link in the email I'll send to you as well. I've also got positivecareeradvice.com. I also write guides for the Tate website as well. And obviously, as David mentioned right at the beginning, the EA and PA networking group on LinkedIn. If you're not already a member, then please feel free to obviously join that group, and David will let you straight in to join, and you can join in the conversation there with similar like-minded people as well. But I hope you've enjoyed the session and you've got lots from it. And, you know, there's lots to look forward to and lots that you can do about it. And we hope that we've helped to educate you on some of those first few steps that you can take. But enjoy your tea and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you all.
See you later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.